Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Kelly Resendez. We're going to chat about her self-development journey. Kelly is also in the mortgage business, so we'll chat a little bit about the state of the real estate market as well. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a monthly email where I share the best articles I read this month, let you know about upcoming episodes, and share a little wisdom. You can also listen to coaching calls under the Coaching Calls tab. I also share the most interesting articles I read every week on Facebook at facebook.com/Richer Soul. And there's also a Facebook group where you can ask questions and interact with other listeners. I want to share some wisdom from Epictetus today on the good life. It's the life of inner serenity. The surest sign of a higher life is serenity. Moral progress results in freedom from inner turmoil. You can stop fretting about this and that. If you seek the higher life, refrain from such common patterns of thinking as these. If I don't work harder, I'll never earn a decent living. No one will ever recognize me. I'll be a nobody. Or, if I don't criticize my employee, he'll take advantage of my goodwill. It's much better to die of hunger, unhindered by grief and fear, than to live affluently, beset with worry, dread, suspicion, and unchecked desire. Begin at once a program of self-mastery, but start modestly with the little things that bother you. Has your child spilled something? Have you misplaced your wallet? Say to yourself, coping calmly with this inconvenience is the price I pay for my inner serenity. For freedom from perturbation, you don't get something for nothing. When you call your child, be prepared that she may not respond to you, or if she does, she might not do what you want her to do. Under these circumstances, it doesn't help your child for you to become agitated. It should not be in her power to cause you any disturbance. Amazing wisdom from so long ago, and so apropos for what we are going to talk about today, and also for the fact that this episode is releasing on Christmas morning. Imagine what every day would be like if it was Christmas morning and you had the excitement of a little kid at Christmas. You know what? Let's look at what that looks like. Please hit pause on the show, check the show notes right at the top for a link to a Christmas morning video. It's really short and it shows how to live like every morning is Christmas. Go ahead, hit pause and go watch the short video. Hey, did you enjoy that video? Today, we're going to talk with our guest about living life like the man in the video. Speaking of gifts, we did have a few people who received copies of the books that were mentioned in episode 100 and who emailed in requesting them. How does Kelly, a successful, high-powered woman leader in a volatile business climate, find peace and live what models a richer soul life? She has spent over 15 years working on herself, and we've been through some of the same programs. We're going to touch on purpose, mindsets, health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality, and see how Kelly creates her own unique life puzzle and then lives it out. Kelly Resendez is a mom, business executive, best-selling author, and influencer. She loves helping others with strategies to overcome self-sabotage and find more joy. Author of the new and already popular book, Big Voices, is also the founder of the movement the book is named for, Big Voices, a woman-powered network. Kelly is passionate about helping people increase joy, reduce suffering, and learn how to think differently. Her own journey has helped her to create the strategies and tools that she shares throughout her books. Currently, Kelly is the Executive Vice President of Paramount Partners Group, which is a division of LoanPal. She uses the same concepts of mindfulness, self-discovery, and goal setting to help those in the mortgage and real estate industries create a successful business. Let's meet our guest. Welcome to Richer Soul, Kelly. It's great to have you join us today.
Good afternoon, Rocky. I am very happy to be here with you and your listeners.
And I am thrilled to have you here. So, we always start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Yeah, so growing up for me was in Northern California in a small town. And my parents definitely did not come from a lot of money, but had made the decision at a young age that they wanted a lot of it themselves. So the whole time that I was growing up, my parents were just super hard workers. They both owned their own businesses and definitely had a strong desire to provide a lifestyle for my sister and I that they didn't have themselves. My mom had immigrated here from Mexico, and her and my grandma came with pretty much nothing and were able to build a sizable real estate portfolio within just a few years. So my parents definitely taught me that hard work would yield success. And with that success, they were able to provide a lifestyle to us where we had boats and jet skis and a second home and snowmobiles and other things. So we had a really good balance between working hard and playing hard, which was great for me because I was able to bring that into my life as well.
That's really cool. So were you born after they had success, or did you watch them achieve success?
I watched them achieve success. They lived in an apartment when my mom was still pregnant with me and then moved into a home that they had built together. So I was really there. Honestly, when I mean I was there, I was under the desk at my parents' shop the whole time that I was growing up, or going with my mom to suppliers. You know, my dad was a heating and air conditioning contractor, so we often had to go and pick up what he needed. And so I was just right there. And from an early age, it was awesome. My mom started teaching me how to do invoicing or to answer the phone or to type different things. And I was really just a part of the business from a young age. So I was able to watch them go from just having a very small amount of money to being very successful.
And that's really cool. For a lot of kids, they don't get to experience that, and they don't get to learn essentially life skills and how you live life. And you got to be there as part of that. That's really cool.
Absolutely. And I think looking back, I definitely didn't appreciate it at the time because they made me start working when I was so young. And I've never known anything different. But that work ethic that I have today is definitely from the foundation that they laid for me. And I'll tell you that there's good lessons and bad lessons in anything that we go through. And for my parents, I would say one of the hardest things that they had a hard time with, though, is that when they were working, they were so achievement focused that they weren't really that present. So although they had fun outside of work, they weren't able to be as present as I would have loved for them to be when I was little. But I had a grandma that was there every single day. And she was the one that really probably did the majority of the parenting because my parents were grinding so hard.
Well, and that's usually the immigrant story. When you come to the United States, that's one of the things you have to do, and that's what drives their success. It's very similar to our story as well. You come here and you do the work, and if things work out, you have tremendous success.
I'm so proud of the fact that my grandmother sacrificed everything to bring my mom to the United States because she had a vision for their life and she stopped at nothing to get it. And so that lesson just in itself has been something that's always a reminder that I've got to in turn be there to support other people, because not only did she create success for herself, my grandmother was, I would say, the Statue of Liberty for our town. Everyone went to my grandma right when they arrived, and she was the one that helped connect them with jobs or resources because she was bilingual. And so she took her success and she really became a giver as well, and really made a huge impact in everyone's lives that migrated here from Mexico.
That is amazing. And I'm sure she lived a thrilling life because she did that. And
She
you get
did.
so much fulfillment from that. So what are you doing then to teach your kids about money?
It's definitely harder. The environment that my kids have been raised in, being in personal growth and development since they were little, one of the things that I always wanted to do was I wanted to give them the wisdom that I didn't have. I feel like I wasted the first 30 years of my life being a perfectionist and trying to please or impress other people. And so I really wanted to make a bigger impact in my kids' life. But as you know, as a parent, it doesn't always work that way. So we can only really be the change that we want to see in our kids. Teaching them, sometimes it's more difficult than it seems. So I've always really just tried to emulate living a balanced lifestyle. So they see me exercise, budget, make decisions when they ask to eat out 7 days a week, which I'm sure everyone can relate to. The kids of my kids' generation, Starbucks to them doesn't mean $20. It just means a normal day. So I try to teach them, hey, we're really only limited to 3 meals out. That's the reason why we're not doing this. And I try to just give them the subtleties about how to build wealth, that it's the compound effect of every decision that you make that really adds up to financial freedom. So we do things like making sure that their chores are done before they get an allowance, and that they really do value money and they get to see me earn at the level that I do, but they also see how hard I work. So to be honest, it's been more about being a good role model to them rather than just constantly being in a place where I'm trying to teach them or tell them something that they should be doing.
You can't tell kids anything. They learn by watching you, not by listening to you. And so it's your actions that drive the results you want.
Completely. I'm still waiting. Let me tell you, Rocky, for the kids to be like, wow, mom. But being somebody that's also studied neuroscience, our big joke in our house is when they're 25, their frontal lobe's going to wake up and be like, wow, mom, thank you so much for all of the wisdom that you've demonstrated to us over the years. But until then, I wait patiently.
And that's all you can do, right? I know what that struggle is like sometimes.
And not give them everything that they want. I remember being a kid. I don't know if you remember the Best catalog. Did you ever have a store that was called Best when you were growing up?
I think we did. I'm trying to remember it because it's been a long time ago.
Oh my goodness. It was literally a book, right? It was just this super thick book. And that's the way that we typically shopped for Christmas presents in my house. And then maybe we journey the 90 minutes that it took to get to Sacramento and actually get to go into the store as well. But we really just didn't have the one touch that our kids do, because now my son created his Christmas look that has hyperlinks into it of every website that he wants for everything. They're able to just see things so quickly, and the instant gratification that they really want by just being able to buy something immediately rather than work for it or things like that has definitely changed. So I purposely, this is the one thing that I really try to do. I purposely try to say no as often as possible to my kids. It's just because that's a muscle that I need them to learn. If they want it bad enough, then they're going to figure out a way. My son wants to start a business right now. He's 13 and he wants to start reselling. And so as we're talking about this discussion, I'm like, I absolutely invest in businesses because that's something that I do. And I'm like, but you need to create a business plan. He's like, well, can you help me? And I just said, well, I can help you after you've started, but you need to go on YouTube and you need to find how other people have done it and then come and pitch me and let me know what my rate of return is going to be on my investment. So we'll see if he does it. But those are the types of things just as parents now that we wouldn't have been able to do when I was growing up at all. So there's so much good and there's so much bad that the new digital and technology age have brought to raising children today.
And that's very true. I mean, that sounds like it's a perfect night to go watch a couple episodes of Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And we've watched that with our kids, and it helps to start the conversations and to have those types of things. I guess I've been lucky in that we gave our kids an allowance and we stepped out of the we're buying you stuff. There just no longer was that expectation. Like, you have money, go buy what you want. Leave me alone.
And what age was that, Rocky?
We started at 5.
Holy moly.
And because we started at 5 and they had 7 years of learning before they hit those teenage years, it just changed the whole paradigm. And it's funny even now, because my daughter's 18, my son is 16, and she just went off to college. And she's like, I don't understand how these people are going through so many paper towels. I don't understand how they're spending money like they're spending money. She understands it because she knows what it means. And it's because we gave control to the kids. Even my son barely spends money. He spends very little. He's content with what he has. This Christmas, I don't even know if there's much of anything on the Christmas list. I'll give my daughter money for college because we told her if you're smart enough to go to college, you're smart enough to figure out how to pay for all of this. But so she'll get cash for college. He's got everything he wants, and he doesn't want a lot. And he just won the new computer playing Fortnite, so he doesn't need new technology. I don't know what we're going to do.
I have one of each, quite honestly. So like I have a daughter that anytime I'm like, hey, do you need money? No, Mom, I got it. Or no, I'll get it. She literally just wants to be able to do stuff on her own. My son is the absolute complete opposite. This is just the absolute truth, which people are probably going to gasp. He asked for an $8,000 item yesterday. And he's like, do you think that you and Dad? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you absolutely are kidding me right now. And he's totally into fashion right now. So it was some Gucci. I don't even know what it was, whether it was a suitcase or something. And I know part of him was kidding, but he also has really, really big taste in his life. I just get one of each. So one of them, I'm constantly trying to get her to allow me to give to her. And the other one, it's just he would take until the ends of the earth if I gave.
So that's where the paradigm shift changes, is the kids will always take as much as, that's just human nature. But when you give them control, that's kind of where they learn that they have to say no. And that was the big thing with my son. It took him a bit longer when he was young. But I remember so many times we'd be at Target and he'd pick something up and he'd walk around the store with it. And when it came time to pay, he'd put it back.
Yeah.
But he still asks for stuff because he knows, hey, if I can get it, I'm going to ask. There's no harm in trying. So it's kind of that back and forth.
Yeah, and it also depends on the dynamics of a family. So if you think about the 5 love languages, there are people that are gifts and acts of service, and I'm not. My ex-husband is, and we live in 2 different households. So that also plays into how you raise children as well, because when you're a divorced parent, whether we like it or not, there is that little bit of competition that can exist for a little while, and it's difficult to navigate. So being on the same page and just really having those boundaries of like what is appropriate. I used to travel a lot for work, and my son thought that every time I flew anywhere, I should be bringing him home a gift. And just setting the right expectations with our kids too, that gifts are not love. They just aren't. Now, some people love to express, love through gifts, but there's a big difference.
And so that's the part that my wife is guilty. Every time she goes away, she wants to come back with a gift. And I'm like, the kids don't want this stuff. Please stop buying stuff. They don't even want it. It becomes overwhelming at some point.
But if it's her love language, then she needs to buy them. That's the hardest thing to understand about just humans, and what's really important to us is that we all have different preferences.
And that's true. So bring chocolate.
Yeah.
Something that we can eat and be done with, and it's not going to clutter the house. It's funny, though. When my daughter was young, she understood that certain things were expensive. And she's tended to go more shopping with me than she did with her mother. But when she would go shopping with her mother, she would constantly, like as a 7-year-old, question her mother and be like, that dress is expensive. Are you sure you need it? And my wife would come home and yell at me.
Oh my goodness.
So it was hilarious. But you know what? They all turned out well. And my wife, she's the spender in the family. I'm like, if you want the stuff, understand you're making a choice. And if you're good with the choice, then go spend it.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've been on a very long self-development journey. I'd like to know what was going on in your life and what started you down that path.
Yeah, so in 2002, coming from a small town, I had a lot to prove. To be honest with you, I was driven by significance up until that point. So when I got into the mortgage industry, with the background that my parents gave me in business and my work ethic, sprinkled with some gifts that I have from God as well, just allowed me to just quite frankly crush it in the mortgage industry. And so I was a high six-figure earner by 2002 and was doing very well in business. But my health wasn't so great and I really didn't feel great. I was constantly on the edge of anxiety and sleeplessness. And during that period of time, my mom, who was only 57, got diagnosed with dementia. And it literally stopped me in my tracks. And I just saw so much of myself in my mom that I had to stop and ask myself bigger questions about what I was doing it for. And as her disease progressed over the next few years, I had some other things that happened. I had my daughter in 2003 and I lost my grandmother to cancer. And so just kind of a culmination of things made me start to really just look in the mirror and figure out what I was really doing everything for. And so I started in the consciousness space and started to make a big effort to be present and really find joy. And here I am 15 years later being in it and wanting to share now with the world the wisdom that I've been able to learn. And really the problem I try to help people solve is how do we stay in joy simultaneously while we're suffering? Because life is always going to have challenges for us, whether it's the death of a parent or mental illness in our families or just loss or markets changing, etc. We're always going to have those things, but there is a way to maintain joy in spite of anything else that's happening in your life. And so my journey has just taken me through working with experts all over the world and being able to create some strategies that worked well for me. I'm a type A driver, so just doing the woo-woo meditation thing doesn't necessarily just work for me. I believe in meditation and I love it. However, I really am also a strategist. Like I like real life strategies because I have to show up at work every day and still be able to perform. My journey now has just led me to my most recent book, which is called Big Voices. And it's really just an invitation to people that want to awaken and be able to increase joy in their life.
So you wrote the book, it's Big Voices, Increase Joy, Reduce Suffering, Think Differently.
Yes.
Why did you write the book?
I wrote the book, and this is going to sound crazy, because I had to. It was an absolute knock in my life. So many people are still looking for their purpose. And what I can tell you is that it will just keep knocking and knocking and knocking until you sit in stillness and give it the space to unfold for you. And that's exactly what Big Voices was like. I knew probably 10 years ago that I wanted to write a book and share my story of how I overcame self-sabotage and how I was able to break through limiting beliefs and stories that I'd been telling myself my entire life. And I really just knew that I wanted to share them with other people. And when I started writing, I was not a writer. I mean, I was the math geek. Absolute in the mortgage industry. I wrote a book in the mortgage industry as well called Foundation to Sustainable Success. So I mean, I know how to write in a way of like getting strategies out there. And I've been a speaker for 20 years, so I definitely love teaching. But this writing thing was new for me. And so I just wrote for almost an entire year straight and was able to accumulate all of the lessons and stories that I learned that really helped me combat what I believe is the largest problem that anyone is facing today, which is overthinking and not knowing how to navigate the flood of thoughts that most of us have to endure on a daily basis.
And we do have a flood of thoughts.
We do.
So how do you handle the flood of thoughts?
So my first thought back in the day when I got into the consciousness space and I really just made a decision that I was going to learn how to be present and mindful and aware, was that there was a end goal where I would think less. Like, I really believed that wholeheartedly. I thought if I do all of the things that these other people do, then I'm going to learn how to think less. And the truth is, it never has happened. Whether it's, now I just say super smart people must just have a lot of thoughts, because I haven't been able to stop most of them. I've just learned how to live with them. I've learned how to separate my big voice from my little voice, and they're just background noise now. They don't have any effect on my actions or behaviors, and I'm able to operate with them still in my life. And really, that just came through using my thought management strategy, where I document all of the thoughts that my big voice has, and they're consistent. I mean, most of us, if we start to really document a lot of the thoughts that keep us up at night or throughout the daytime, they're just slightly different variations. I also had to learn about neuroscience. I had to learn about our brain. I had to understand why we ruminate on certain things, especially that are negative versus positive. And it's just the way that our brain works. So we've got to accept it first and foremost. I think that adage of what you resist will persist is absolutely true. The more you try to stop the overthinking, the more overthinking is going to occur. So I just let it flow in my life now. I just don't give power to the ones that don't make any sense. For anyone to believe that they're not a masterpiece and that they're not capable of growing and changing on a daily basis, it's just nonsense.
And that's very true. I mean, it sounds so easy, and yet I know it's something that is very difficult to do. And I think for me, it's taking years. Some people might be faster. I don't know what your experience was. How long did it take you to calm that little voice down and to learn to separate yourself from it?
I would probably say it took a solid 10 years to develop the strategies that I use today to manage it. But during that 10-year period of time, I also had 2 toddlers. I had a business that was in an industry that was just crazy at the time. And so I didn't have a lot of time to actually overthink. I didn't have a lot of inner peace. I mean, I was just running. I mean, being a parent of young kids, there's not a lot of time for self-care. And so when I really got to a place about 5 years ago where I was like, I'm going to really put myself first going forward. My number 2 priority in my life now is my own emotional and physical well-being, and that comes after God. And when I did that, and I learned how to actually slow down a little bit and let go, that's when I was able to develop the strategies, because that's normally where the thoughts are going to get you the most. Most of us just operate in a highly distracted state where we don't get to choose what our life looks like. And so it came in conjunction with choosing what my life was going to look like. So then I had to choose which thought I was really going to allow to come on this journey with me.
And I guess as part of that is also changing the language we use. And I've learned to watch the language that people use and see how much it affects them and the way that they behave.
Language, people don't realize how powerful language is. Our brain, it just gets boring, right? So if you answer, I'm good, I'm busy, I'm overwhelmed, I'm any of these things, it's just the word association in your semantic processing. It's just going to run with it. It's going to believe you. And I think that's one thing, if people want to increase joy in their life, you really need to look at your language that you're using on a daily basis and start describing your life differently. One of my mentors and close friends, Alana Pratt, she quite possibly has the best vocabulary of any person that I've ever been around, because I will have a conversation with her and she'll be like, oh my gosh, I just had the most yummy conversation with my friend so-and-so. And it was just this delicious, in-depth conversation about whatever. She oozes with joy, oozes. And I truly believe it's just because of the way that she's describing everything in her life, because our brain's listening. And it's listening to the negative things that we say too.
That it is. And learning to quiet that is a difficult task, but little by little it happens. So then I guess the question is how do you handle the storms in life? Because they definitely bring out that little voice.
They can, definitely. And so the way that I coach people through managing storms is I use what's called my trigger management strategy. And normally storms are hard, not necessarily because of what's happening, it's because of our thoughts about what's happening or our emotions about it. And sometimes we need to give ourselves permission to feel. I think we want to get out of negative feeling faster than what we would allow. And we had a conversation about Tony Robbins earlier, Rocky, when we were talking, and you said he's all about changing your state, which I think can be powerful. But I also think sitting in the state in which is natural is even more powerful. And so sometimes we just need to allow the emotion to occur before we just go thinking our way out of something. And so my trigger management strategy is just about, step one is just feeling the emotion, really knowing what it is. Is it sadness, uncertainty, fear, anger, doubt, frustration, like whatever is being triggered during that season that you're in? And then step two is really getting to the depth of what your preference is. And we have so many human preferences that it's no matter that we're not disappointed all of the time, because that's really what our ego does. It just produces a long list of preferences that we believe are going to make us happy, which typically aren't. And step three is just to know what your hallucination is. And that's normally, like I always say, beat your frontal lobe to the punch. So your frontal lobe's constantly assessing worst, best case scenarios. And I always just say, you know what, beat it to the punch. It's going to think all day about what the worst case scenario is. So let's just create it right now. And with my son, I think I'd shared with you, he has auditory processing disorder. And it triggers me when I get an email from a teacher or somebody, because I'm like, he hasn't learned anything in your class because all you do is tell him what he needs to learn and he doesn't process that way. And really, when I get to the meat of my preference, the reason why I'm so triggered, and this was the ugly truth that I had to face, was I really wanted him to be an easier kid. I wanted him to be like the rest of the kids. I wanted him to be doing good in school without me ever having to intervene and doing anything. Like I was like that for my parents. And then my hallucination is just that he's going to be an absolute loser for the rest of his life because he's struggling in 8th grade science, which is just ridiculous. Science didn't define me. And so step 4 always gets us to that place of just choice, which is, can I grow through this? Can I be more accepting? Is this really happening for me so that I can let go of something right now? Or do I need to avoid it? Is this just really something that I can avoid in my life? And normally the answer for me is I always choose growing, but there are definitely times where I've had to say, I just don't have capacity right now to be able to grow through this. I'm going to have to shelve this one right now, and I'll get back to it at a time where I have capacity. So that's how I teach people, really just to see the gratitude in the struggle. I've made a decision that my children have chosen me to teach me the lessons that I was unwilling to learn on my own. And just having that perspective has helped me be a better parent.
And that's that change in the lens and the way we look at things. So since we're talking about kids, have you done anything to kind of enlighten them along their own self-development journey?
Oh, yeah. It basically was in the car was definitely the time that we've always spent the most time in deep discussions until they got earbuds. And then that changed everything. So I feel like I got a good solid 12 years in with both of them, where somehow we would just have conversations about things, but they've always been in proximity to events and whatnot. My daughter comes with me to some of my speaking events. So even though she's not there to hear me speak, she gets to, because she's the one that sells my books, and just taking them to events as well. And then making sure that they have goals for themselves that we're always trying to push towards.
And that's cool. I've taken my kids to events too. And a lot of times they're the youngest one in the room. But it's helped them to kind of break through a lot of the things that society tells them they're supposed to do and to be able to walk away. And as far as I'm concerned, I think they're going to have a massive jump start on life, because instead of waiting till they're 30 or 40 or whatever to finally figure this stuff out, they're figuring it out literally before they're hitting college.
They are. And somebody asked me, what's the greatest lesson that you want to teach your kids? And this was my standard answer probably for about 10 years straight was, I'm going to teach them how to be lonely, because the level of consciousness that we have in our family is definitely heightened, and it's not typical. And now I've really transitioned that just in changes in my life to I need to teach them how to build tribes of like-minded people around them. Because what I've found is that when I started doing that, I had to go out and seek connection. It didn't come easy. I couldn't walk into a bar or coffee shop and just find people that were at the same level of consciousness as me. And so now I just all about teaching them how to navigate this world with the skills and tools and development that they do have so that they don't feel like being something that they're not simply to get connection with other people.
And so that's been a big struggle, especially for my daughter. She's like, where do I find these people? And I think it may be better now, but I don't know how many groups there are out there for kids who have that mindset to start connecting.
Just got to get them into events. I mean, that's the biggest thing is when you take them to different events, there are definitely people out there that have younger audiences. Rachel Hollis has a huge following of younger females especially, and you just have to find the right ones. And there's so many tribes that are out there. One of the things that I put on my goals last year was that I was going to connect with more like-minded people, and just asking for help more created a whole world of possibility for me. I'm a part of a tribe called M1, and there's about 300 people that are across the world. And I've got connections with people that are completely in the same place as I am, that want financial freedom, that want to prosper so that they can make an impact, that like living a growth and goal-oriented life. I mean, once you put it out into the world, you know how flow works. It will end up happening for her.
And that's very true. When you tell the universe what you want, you know your purpose and you're clear cut, all of a sudden it starts to open doors and provide for you. But you do have to step through the door. You have to show up and do the hard work. It's not like you just think about it and it appears.
And I would tell you one of the number one blocks that I help people through, and this is a tricky one, because I would probably say that most people in the personal growth and development world don't add this into what you should be doing. When you write down exactly what help you need in order to actualize your vision and purpose, it changes everything. Absolutely changes everything. And right now, I have a whole list of things that I need help with to be able to move Big Voices forward even more. And so it's just putting it out there. And then all of a sudden I get emails from people that somebody told them to reach out to me or whatever that connection was. So I'm fully trusting that it will happen once you're really clear on that.
And so I've heard that you actually have to write it versus typing it, that there is a different kind of connection. And it's weird, but I think it's the motion of writing it versus typing it makes a difference. And I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if you've heard of anything like that or your thoughts on it.
Well, Rocky, being extremely faith-based myself, I don't think God has a preference for how you get the information out there. There are some of the most successful, goal-oriented manifestors that I know have never written a single thing down at all. Not typed it, not written it, anything. It's not one size fits all. I think the most powerful piece that comes with it is just a true, unshakable desire to be able to do that, whatever it is that you set your mind to. And when you have that, whether you type it, write it, whatever it is, I think that's where the magic happens.
And that's very true. I think it had to do with locking it into your mind more so than sending it out to the universe, that when you write things down, they lock better than when you type them.
Well, your brain, being a computer, just needs a program, right? And so it's got one that's been running our whole lives, and it's going to keep running the same program until you start putting in new information every single day. I'm a big advocate of looking at your vision and your goals every single day and really just stepping into them. I think handwriting is the release of so much anxiety and so much angst. Like, that's what I really see handwriting does for so many people, because you're not worried about correcting. Like, when we type stuff, we reread it, we can auto-correct, things like that. And I just think we need more space just to be imperfect. I handwrote all my books, handwrote them. I have a transcriptionist then that types them. And it's just what worked well for me.
And that is cool. We'll be back to the show in a moment. I'm really excited to have this conversation with Kelly. It took Kelly 10 years to make a lot of the changes. Throughout that process, she's had many coaches and support groups to help her succeed. Having help allows you to move through the process quicker and break through barriers when you get stuck. I help small business owners and high-income earners get clarity on life and build their path. One dream session can break down so many barriers and create actionable steps to move forward in all areas of life. Are you clear about your vision for life? And do you wake up every morning excited about your day and the direction you're going? Email me at rocky@richersoul.com and we can have a short, no-obligation chat to see if I can help propel you forward. Now, let's get back to our amazing guest, Kelly. So you've mentioned this a couple times. Let's touch on it because I don't always delve into this as much. But how much does God and spirituality fit into your life?
So I would tell you that God and Jesus are the center of my world. And it absolutely is the wellspring of the joy and trust that I have in my life. But I also work in the spiritual world and I also work in the business world. And I don't push my beliefs on anyone, but if they certainly ask, I will share with them in a heartbeat why I believe I have the level of joy in my life that I do. So everything is based off of God being my biggest priority in my life. And so I'm surrendered. Like he tells me where to go and what to do. And I'm just in a place now where whether it's impacting the people that I work with here with love or people that I serve in the nonprofit world or friends, family, people I don't even know. I just believe that my role is to bring impact into the world and spread more joy. So it has a huge part in my life.
I want people to hear that. And just like you, I don't tell people what to believe spiritually. I just tell them, figure out what it is that you do believe spiritually and connect and live with that and make it a big part of your life. It's one of the parts that you also have to address.
It is. And I would say that so many people have a distaste for people sharing their religious beliefs because there's so much hypocrisy involved in it. You hear somebody one moment say one thing, whether it's a Christian or whatnot, and then they're gossiping or doing something negative the next second. And I want to be the person that's out there that's just being fully authentic and transparent, that I'm broken like the rest of everybody. I endure self-suffering, but with my trust in God and his work in me, I've been able to overcome it and live an absolutely blessed life where I get to share the wisdom that he's given me with other people. But I can tell you, being in the secular space, I've got a coaching and training company separate than Big Voices too. We want to help people actualize their potential. And for some people, that comes in the faith-based world, in the spiritual world, or completely without either. Like whatever way we're going to help somebody get there is the way that we want to. And I would imagine in your coaching business that it's exactly the same way, is that acceptance is the absolute basis of success as a coach, is that we have to accept people for where they are, and we're trained to be able to help them get where they want to go.
And that's the one big thing I think that I've always come forth with. I don't have a system for you. I don't have a goal for you. I'm not going to tell you what to do because you're a unique person and you have to figure out what you want and how your particular puzzle pieces come together and how all of these things are going to fit for your life. And when it comes to spirituality, there's a quote out there and I can't remember off the top who says it, but it's like, preach the Bible constantly and when necessary, use words, which is basically your actions. And it comes back to just what we talked about with kids. They don't listen to you. They listen to your actions. Make your actions be what you truly believe and live whatever your choice is. Go live it and live it honestly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just think that the less judgment that we have and the place where most of us, our desires to bring more peace into the world and being accepting of one another's differences is what's going to create harmony. And that's what we need. Like healthy controversy and disagreement is totally great if we're accepting of somebody else's views. And I believe that's how we're going to change the world, is through looking at things from a different lens. And that lens has to be peace first. The Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu wrote a book together, which, anybody in the faith-based world, they're two of my absolute favorites. And I have so many Buddhist beliefs that I view in my life as positive, but I'm definitely a Christian. And just listening to the way these two banter back and forth about the way that they increase joy in their life is just, it's nothing short of miraculous. That's what we need more of.
Absolutely. And it's understanding that the way that we kind of look at this is all of these religions have the same basic philosophies, and they come literally back down to that. And that's why you can relate to all of these other ones, because they are so similar in their base philosophies. And you've got to go live those base philosophies of putting God first.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where people and priorities get off track, is that most people don't consciously sit down and say, what are really my priorities in my life? Because they just let life happen. Most people check email before they do anything else in the morning. And it's like, feed your soul first. My morning discipline starts off the same every single day. I read the Bible 365 days of the year. I do my devotional. I review my goals, my I am statements. I journal. And I stick to my number one rule in my life, which is nobody steals my joy. But if I don't do that, if I don't prepare myself for whatever the day brings me, it's going to be easy to get emotionally triggered. It's going to be easy to snap at somebody when I should have just given them some grace for whatever mistake or happenstance that just occurred. So I think that we have to really look at our priorities. And my kids come right after my physical and emotional well-being. And quite frankly, I hear people say all the time, my kids are my biggest priority. And I'm like, but you go home from work, dog tired, and have nothing to give to them. They're not the biggest priority if you're using all your energy at work. And that's where we just have to get a little bit more strategic about our energy. One of my favorites, Brendan Burchard, talks about energy being like we're a power plant. So many people think that we had it and we lost it, when truly we just need to generate it. And we've got to generate energy. And being a female, I can tell you that I lost so much of my energy being in my masculine rather than being in my feminine, because I had masks on. It takes a lot of work to pretend like you're something that you're not. And so we've got to get better about managing that energy so that we can get really in line with where our priorities are in our life.
And to me, that's what balance means. It's understanding your priorities and then doing it. And that is what balance truly is. It's not equality of every part of your life. It's knowing the priority and then doing what's required for that priority.
Absolutely. And I would just add on to this is just be present wherever you are. So many of us, when we're with our kids, we're thinking about work. And when we're at work, we're thinking about our kids. And when we're having a conversation, we're thinking about a project or whatever it is. Just set the intention right before you go into a meeting, right before you do anything, just that I choose to be present for the next hour. I'm not going to check my phone. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to give them my absolute attention and be an active listener. And that's where life changes. Our joy increases the more present we are.
And that's where life happens, in the moment. And
it does.
You've got to be there in the moment, paying attention.
For sure. But the downside to our brain is that it's normally so focused on one thing that it can't see anything else. So we miss so many opportunities, and we've got to just be more intentional about it.
Absolutely. So I'd like to touch on a subject that nobody wants to talk about, diet and exercise. As a high performer, how does diet and exercise kind of fit into your life, and how have you conquered it?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. Here's the truth. I don't love the gym. And for so many years, I definitely tried to do exercise the same way that everyone else did exercise. And what I realized was I just needed to create something different for myself. So basically what I believe, like for myself, is I love walking outside. So my goal is that a minimum of 5 times a week that I'm going to do cardio. And so 5 times a week, I do cardio outside, and it's rain or shine. I've gotten to a place now where it is just completely non-negotiable in my life And then my exercise routine is pretty hilarious. So I do push-ups every time I go up the stairs in my house. So on a daily basis, I do anywhere between 50 to 75 push-ups. I do anywhere between 50 to 75 squats every time I'm waiting for my tea, cooking, or letting my dog outside. And then I probably spend about another 5 to 10 minutes a couple times a week doing some ab work and other things. So from an exercise standpoint, I pretty much just exercise all day long. When I'm on a conference call at work, I'm typically doing squats, leg lifts, something like that. And then health for me, when it comes to nutrition, is absolutely critical. I'm a true believer that food is medicine. So I've made a decision many years ago. I don't eat meat and I don't eat sugar. So from a health perspective, I definitely am absolutely, completely immersed in the idea that the quality of our life is directly related to the quality of our physical health. It affects our emotional health as well.
And that it does. So unfortunately, I think people don't spend the time that they need to on diet and exercise and figuring out what works for them and what fits their lifestyle and their needs. And you seem to have found a way within your lifestyle to be able to fit exercise in. And it doesn't even sound like it takes much extra time out of your day and that you're doing it constantly. And then when you remove the emotions from food and you start fueling your body properly, and I think that's the other thing people don't realize, our body does not need anywhere near as much fuel as we put into it. And the one thing that really screws us up is sugar. And unfortunately, it is literally a staple of everything from a bagel in the morning all the way throughout your day. And if you can get rid of that, I've noticed that I don't even get hungry and I don't even eat for long periods of time. And I will go do heavy exercise on empty stomachs. And it's just no big deal because my body has gotten used to fueling itself.
Yeah, and I would just say it's finding like what uniquely works for each individual person. If you look at the amount of money that's pumped into the diet and exercise world, it's apparent that everybody wants an easy way out, right? I just saw somebody advertise, it was actually at church yesterday, they were just showing some funny ads, but it was like, there was a pizza diet, a taco diet, like everyone wants some diet that's going to allow them to continue to consume food that's been giving them emotional fulfillment. And when we really understand, like, it is an emotional attachment, it is something that we've got to break. We've got to spend time trying to not eat our way through the emotions that are just a natural part of our life. But most of us got this from when we were small kids. Like you'd cry and your parents would say you don't get dessert. And maybe we should have been crying. Maybe we should have been releasing that emotion rather than stopping what we were doing so that we could go get some sugar. So just being aware of it and just making a commitment to, I always say, journal how you feel on a daily basis. Write down what you eat, journal how you feel. It leaves clues. And over a period of time, I haven't been sick since 2009. And there's a reason. It's just our bodies operate so much better with less processed food. And there's a whole amount of money to be made off of you when you don't choose to eat healthy. A lot. From pharmaceutical companies to the food industry to the exercise industry, everyone wants you to stay emotionally tied to food because there's a lot of money in it. And I don't want to be a fool to that. So I hope more people wake up and they start taking it back because really that's how we improve health is we start eating better.
And that's very true. And as I'm getting older, it has become much more important because I'm starting to see people 20 years ahead of me. And I'm like, I do not want to look like that. So I best get to working now so that I don't look like that in 20 years.
Yeah, somebody asked me, like, when did you make the decision? And I'm like, I actually had to park outside of a restaurant called the Pancake Circus one morning when I was going to get a pedicure and watching the line of people that were obese, had walkers, and needed assistance getting in and out of this restaurant. Literally in that moment, I visualized myself at like age 70 in that way. And I'm like, it's over. I can't do this another minute. I just choose not to. But you got to make it a goal. You got to make a decision that it's important to you.
That you do. And that brings up a topic that I've heard you talk about, and maybe you can explain it for the audience, which is the dirty yes versus the hard no?
Yeah, that was actually my friend Matty A, who is a big real estate investor, Matt Aitchinson. If anybody ever wants to get into that world of flipping, he uses this. And really, for me, it's just setting good boundaries for yourself. When we set goals or create a vision for our life, so often we get to this point where we just are tired and we start answering things that are not really in alignment with what is for our greater good. And so you want to take more time before you answer. Maybe for your health, it's just like today, I've made a decision that I'm going to go home. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to go for a walk. Now, somebody might call at 5:30 and say, do you want to meet me for dinner? And if I answered yes, it'd just be really not in alignment with what my goals are right now. So we want to just have better boundaries for ourselves so that we can be really, really strong in a yes.
And I've been spending this year learning to say no to a lot of things, and it's been going well. It's clearing up much more space for me to do what I really want to do.
That is awesome.
So let's kind of shift gears. You are in the real estate mortgage environment in that business. Things have started to shift a little, and I think I've talked a little bit on some of my episodes. Two of our houses just are under contract. I have another one that has been sitting a while. What's going on in the mortgage environment in the real estate world?
So what's happened over the course of the last year is interest rates have been rising, which is just a natural part of an economic cycle. And at the same time, the interest rates went up, other economic signs stayed pretty positive, like job growth and demand and other things. But where we're really challenged right now is really with affordability. So as interest rates went up, the income and the number of people that could buy homes at those prices just couldn't support it. And so what we really just saw happen recently is just more of a combination between a seasonal downturn and just a slowing of our market. We don't expect that home prices are going down anytime soon. We don't expect that demand's going to go down either. We just don't expect that we're going to be in the rapid multiple offer environment that we were in for so long that ends up driving prices higher. So we expect a very flat market the next several years. We expect to continue to see good job growth and low unemployment rates, but we do also expect to see interest rates continue to rise. So for anybody that's out there considering debt consolidation or buying a home, it really is a great time right now to take advantage before interest rates go up.
And that's very true. I locked in my rates a while ago, so they're all pretty low. I have heard stories, though, of prices dropping, depending on where you are in the country.
Yeah, it definitely depends on where you are, because across the board, definitely no price drops. There was just mid-August, we just saw a couple markets, and of course the press is going to pick up on that, right? We saw a couple markets that saw some sputtering, but you don't know. Were they distressed properties? You don't know the whole story always.
And that's very true. Everything is local and every house is different. So what is the biggest thing you run into besides people's credit? Like when people have to go through a mortgage process, I know a lot of people fuss over it. What's the biggest issues you see with people as you try to get them to fill out their paperwork and get things moving?
I would say the biggest challenge is just that people don't understand how critical it is to get every piece of documentation that your lender has asked for. And if somebody hasn't gone through a loan process in many years ago, it was just, waive it, no big deal, you can get away with that. Now investors are just microscopically looking at every single detail. And so it's so important that you are forthcoming about everything. If you're on title to your mom's house, if you have a side job, if you have anything, it is so important now that you fully disclose anything that could come up, because there's so many multiple ways that we have to validate your loan application, where before we just looked at your application and got documentation. Now we have services like Fraud Guard and tax transcripts and other things that are pulled to be able to validate everything that you've told us.
And so you need to have your financial life in order, and you should be able to know where to get all of your paperwork at a moment's notice and make it easy for your mortgage lender.
Absolutely. I mean, and the truth is, this is just an area of avoidance, Rocky, that so many people don't want to look at their financial situation. And so I always tell people you should have a financial coach or somebody that's helping you accurately assess your net worth, figure out how much money you need to retire, and talk to your mortgage and real estate advisors in tandem. Most people just get a loan and buy a house. They don't go the distance and actually look at everything else. And we've been so dependent on real estate as being the area that net worth is highest. And for most of us that are teaching people how to achieve financial freedom, I would tell you that we would say exclude it because that's like your shelter. You don't want to really sacrifice that. I would just really advise that instead of hiding from your finances, that you really just put it out on the table and know what your budget is and know what your net worth is, and then set some goals around that as well.
And we talk about that all the time. You need to create your balance sheet and you need to create your statement of cash flows. And you need to look at where your cash is flowing and say, is it flowing in alignment with what I want it to do? And is it doing what it should be? And I constantly remind people, always have your balance sheet. And like you, I don't believe your house necessarily should be on your balance sheet because many times it's not really an investment. It sucks up more money than you can imagine. And it's not really bringing you a return in most cases. So keeping it off the balance sheet gives you a better picture of your true net worth and where it is. And then constantly looking at your cash flow once a year, sitting down and saying, where is my money flowing and am I in agreement with that? And I've constantly put links in many of the show notes for how to do that. It's not difficult. It's actually quite easy. And there's ways to do it going forward versus having to sit down and dig through things and behind. So if you're struggling with it, it's something very easy to work through. And if you need help, get help.
That's awesome advice.
So based on our conversation today, what's one action step people can take to move forward this week?
Yeah, I would say it's just a matter of making a decision. I encourage people to write out a vision for their life, really writing out how you want to feel in business, in finances, in your relationships, family, health, etc. And then start to take the steps necessary in order to get there. So goal planning time of year right now, it definitely is a good time to be able to set up some new goals for yourself for 2019. And trust me, your brain will reward you. That's how we can increase our feel-good hormones, is by setting things as goals and then being able to move towards achieving them. So I'd love for you guys to check out our website at bigvoicesrise.com. I have a ton of free resources there that can help you get started with your goals and your vision. And I actually have the thought management strategy and the trigger management strategy there for you that you can download with some tips as well.
And I was going to ask, where can people find you and connect? And you've already told them.
Perfect.
Perfect. One step ahead always.
Always.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a thrilling conversation.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Rocky.
Did you hear how Kelly models for her kids? It's important to be intentional with your children. The process of change is not immediate. It's a journey. And happiness and fulfillment is along the journey. It's not the destination. Kelly has defined her life. She's intentional with how she lives it. She can even fit in an exercise routine into her day. She also has a special link for all of you. It's bigvoicesrise.com/richer soul. And I'll put that link in the show notes. Also, if you need a mortgage, you can check out her site, ppgloans.com. And if you're in the real estate business and are looking for training and coaching for realtors and lenders, she has another site, ftssforsuccess.com. All of those are in the show notes. This week's action step was to write out a vision for your life. If you need help, reach out and ask for it. Kelly can help. I can help. Someone else can help. But don't just sit there and wait. Let's get moving. The year is just about to end and a new year is upon us. If you're still listening, you must have liked this episode. So please share it with a few friends. I'd appreciate that. And as a Christmas gift to me, leave a rating in iTunes or whatever podcast app you use. There's a link in the show notes to make that easy. You can always reach me at rocky@richersoul.com. I'd love to hear how you're doing and how the information I have shared with you has helped. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant last week of 2018.